If you're watching on the AFA Today channel, you're seeing the Bull of Wall Street. That is less than maybe 200, 300 yards from the doorstep of the building that we're in here. AFA Today coming to you from the belly of the news beast in Lower Manhattan, the news industry capital of the world. And today there's not a lot of breaking news. We'll keep you posted on anything that is going on, but I'm engaging you. Kevin McCullough is engaging you in a discussion about philosophical ideas related to basic order and well-being for teachers and students in our public schools. And I want to know your thoughts. The Department of Justice has said that if you have automatic punishments that kick in for certain violations in schools, that you're disproportionately discriminating against Hispanic and black kids. There's no mention if Hispanic and black kids actually are doing the actual crimes they're being accused of. That's not being determined here. They're saying the policy is racist because more black kids and Hispanic kids will get into trouble if those policies stay in place. So obviously the answer is, well, we don't want to get too many black kids and Hispanic kids in trouble because that's somehow politically incorrect. What about parents raising their children, regardless of what race they are, to respect authority, maintain themselves in public in an orderly fashion, obey their teachers, and be a good student? Is that completely out of the question? Is that something that's too far off the reservation for us to come to grips with and be okay with? 888-589-8840, 888-589-8840. Let's start in Texas. Matt is there, and Matt, now you're on with Kevin McCullough. So glad you're here. Hi. Hello, Matt. Are you there?
Mark from Texas.
Mark, welcome. You're on with Kevin McCullough. How are you?
Hey, how you doing, Kevin?
Good. Thank you for your call.
The Bible says foolishness is bound in the heart of a child, so I do believe that, as children, they're going to do some foolish things sometimes, but I think it's the job and the responsibility of the parent to instill some type of discipline on the children and have them to be respectful, and they should be held accountable for their actions, especially being disruptive in classrooms when other children are trying to learn and get what the teacher's trying to put out for them. But as far as that other thing, as far as the government racially saying it's racially profiling, now depending on where you live, Chicago, New York, where I'm from, and all of that, you're going to get a higher percentage of minorities, and so it may be a position where they're going to be the ones that get primarily in more trouble because that's where they primarily live. But I think that it should be some type of punishments, or they should be held accountable for their actions. You can't just go around in society and causing problems. But the problem is now, Kevin, is that society has changed. Morality is just out of the window, and they think that people can just do whatever they want, and they call it right wrong and wrong right. And anything you say to people, they just don't want to hear it. And that's the problem. Nobody wants to address it. Now, I don't want to be the boy crying wolf. But there is still some racial profiling that does take place. There's still racism in the world, and I think that's just something that's going to never go away. But I don't think that we should just go ahead and pull that race card every time we can, because the reality is in Chicago it's primarily black and Hispanic kids there, and they are the ones that are causing or involved with more of the problems than, say, white kids from a suburban town somewhere. So, that's just my take on it. I think,
well, it's interesting.
So I can hear you.
No, it's interesting, Mark. Thank you for your call. It's interesting that you mentioned that because, I was a local broadcaster in Chicago for a lot of years. South side of Chicago, predominantly African-American. If you have zero tolerance policies on guns and knives in school, by percentage, you're going to send a lot of African-American kids home in that school district because that's where they live. It's just what Mark was saying. The flip side of what I was saying before the break, I think still holds true. If you punish the kids that are doing whatever is wrong when they do whatever is wrong, doesn't that benefit all the kids that are still left? Doesn't that benefit the majority of Hispanic kids and Latino kids and black kids that are still in the classroom wanting to learn? I don't think that we can overstate the importance of parental training in the educational process. And yet I have this, and I don't have statistics and studies in front of me at the tip of my fingers today to show you this, but I have this gnawing feeling in my gut that when you see increase in violence and crime in certain neighborhoods and so forth, I have this raw feeling in my gut that you also have a deterioration of parental skills and involvement in the kids' lives. There's been a lot of different people that have suggested different ways of dealing with this. Maybe you should punish the parent for the crime of the child when he does something wrong in school. I don't know that that's doable, but I think it at least begins to address the issue. Parents, how are you raising your kids? What are you raising them to understand, to think, to be able to take on the world for themselves? Are you making in them a young person that is conforming to his own desires, habits, patterns, etc., or is he ascribing to follow something that's bigger than him, beyond him, that is outside of him? We live in such an inherently selfish world that is, every day, easily manipulated by the people that are willing to spend billions of dollars to keep you confused. And I think one of the worst things we can do with kids is put them in an eternal state of confusion. I think that's really bad. 888-589-8840. Let's go to CW, also from Texas. Texas is in the house today. Hey, CW, welcome. You're on with Kevin McCullough. So glad you're here.
Thank you for taking my call. I think you've hit the highlights here. A lot of this started, I think, if you look throughout our country and the history that we've had in the 1900s here, is as the economy got worse and worse, and there was no member of the parent, neither of the parents in the house. These kids are growing up without any rules. And they're losing focus. Where the family unit itself is struggling so hard to meet whatever they perceive as being what they have required to have, 2 cars, big house, and these sort of things. But we've lost focus on the fact that our primary job as parents is to discipline our kids and raise them up in the beliefs that the Bible tells us. They'll constantly say, well, we didn't get a book to tell us how to raise you. Well, we did. The book's called the Bible. And if we raise them with that perspective, that as they get older, they'll start prescribing to those rules that have been set down by God and not by mankind. I think our government right now is set up in such a way they certainly want to take a different path. So by breaking down every little part of this training process that we have with our kids, and they begin with the financial aspect of it, we'll use the difficulty in acquiring all the things that everybody else has to get parents to go to work, not have as much time to spend with their kids, and it comes at a cost for the parents to say, no, what's most important here is that you're raised in the way that God told us to raise you. Yeah. The other part of this is look, in the schools, me and my wife every year, we've got 3 children here, and they range right now from ages 12 up to 19. But until the oldest one went to college, every year when we bring these kids in and start introducing them to their teachers, we tell them the same thing every year. Look, I'm bringing my kid down here for you to teach them and to educate them and give them knowledge. But if you have any problem with them, pick up the phone and call us.
Right.
We are supposed to be the disciplinarians in their lives. You should not be burdened with that. You've got multiple children up here from all kinds of different aspects of life, different places in, different nationalities, all that. If you have a problem with my kid and his discipline, you need to call me and we'll come up here and solve the problem right away. And if that doesn't work, then just leave the kid at home with me and we'll take care of it. But it's certainly not the job of the school to have to discipline kids. The part of that is, and you were talking about the
well, CW, hold on. They have
tolerance.
CW, hold on. They have to do something. If a child is disruptive and out of control, at the very least, they have to remove the child from the environment in which he's doing that in. So on some level, they do have to take discipline into their own hands on that level, even if they just move him to a detention hall or an isolated classroom or something else. They're responsible to respond to it.
Oh no, I'm not in disagreement with that. But what I'm saying is that teacher sees this kid 6 or 7 hours a day, or the school system does. The problem isn't that the schools are not disciplining them. The problem is they're not being disciplined at home. They don't know how to discipline themselves. So that's where the problem starts. They absolutely need to be removed from the situation, but the parents are the ones that need to take care of that problem. In other words, the teacher and the school system says, okay, come get your kid and bring them back when you've got this figured out.
In my life, when I was growing up, CW, it was, and thank you for the call. When I was, I was more scared of the punishment I would get when I got home if I'd gotten in trouble at school than anything I was facing at school. And I grew up in the era in Texas where I grew up, where the principals were still allowed to give little pops on the behind with the little paddle that had the 3 holes bore out in the center. So he kind of whistled as he brought it through the air. Yeah, I got to feel what that felt like a few times, but that didn't scare me half as much as what I would face if I got home, because my parents made it really clear: if you're a troublemaker for your teacher, whatever punishment you get there, it's going to be paled by what we do when we get home. And I did hours and weeks worth of chores, extra, wrote thousands and thousands and thousands of sentences and Bible verses, and yes, I got extra spankings as well. I did not enjoy getting in trouble at school because I knew there was going to be a double kind of jeopardy situation when I walked in at home. 888-589-8840, and that's kind of what we that's kind of my point. The Department of Justice is saying to the school, you can't have policies where you even remove them from the situation. You can't expel them. You can't suspend them, because you're doing it in a racially divisive way. By the way, they have zero evidence that race is being used to target a single student. But this is how largely the discussion about race in America has begun to be had. It no longer deals with facts. It deals with emotion. It deals with a lot of hypotheticals. And then it draws its conclusions, quote unquote, from situations like this, where they don't really look at the matter and say, are you just punishing kids that are making trouble, or are you racially identifying kids and punishing them? See, that's not happening. That absolutely is not happening. No one's sitting there going, oh, there's Juan. I'm going to make sure I get Juan today, and he's going on my bad list. We're going to make sure he gets. Nobody's doing that. What they are saying is, you got to behave. You come to school. It's a mutually responsible learning environment, and if you can't be responsible, you don't get to stay. But that's why Washington, D.C. shouldn't be in charge of much of anything, in my opinion, because they want to make rules based on these kind of arbitrary exterior figures. Well, exactly 11% of each of the racial population in that school got in trouble last year. See, that's a racially diverse school. Yeah, and probably one that's having a crummy learning experience for all races of kids that are there. It's just odd to me how it's never about what the actual outcome for the child is. It's never about how will this child learn better if we deal with the behavioral issues of that child. No, it's all about, oh, well, we can't say anybody really did anything wrong. Bunch of arbitrary stuff. It's junk. 888-589-8840. Let's go to Paul in Tennessee. Hi, Paul. Welcome. You're on with Kevin McCullough.
Thanks, Kevin. I think basically what we're seeing here is just from the beginning a breakdown of an entire culture to where morality is lowered and lowered. As far as the education system, personally, I was raised in a public school in South Africa in the early 70s. There was no racial issue in the school because we were all of one race. But the kids that got punished were the kids who misbehaved. So there was no way to choose between what color the person was who was going to get punished. It was whoever misbehaved. And that punishment consisted of, as you said, a real punishment that you were afraid of, We didn't have the paddle. We had a bamboo cane. Kept us all in line.
Yeah.
And the kids that were wild at home, they couldn't be wild at school. So even though their parents would have lacked the discipline or weren't doing what they were supposed to do as parents, they did get that discipline at school because it's school. There was no long hair, baggy pants, tank tops. I'd be in reform school if I had to be surrounded by that, environment. We had uniforms, we had short hair, and we just knew we had to do it.
Yeah.
What would happen?
Interesting.
What would happen in the military if everybody was just allowed to do what they want to do because they felt it was their right? It'd be a lack of discipline. I mean, you couldn't tell who was belonging to what army if they're all just running around in clothes they wanted to wear, tattoos, earrings. That's where we're headed. Everybody wants their rights.
Paul, I appreciate the call. I understand exactly what you're saying, and thank you for your contribution on the broadcast today. We're talking about whether or not, and now here's a prediction. Some school experts, education experts, are saying that because the DOJ is putting this pressure on some schools, that the quality of education, that the quality of discipline in schools is going to go down even further because they're just going to be reluctant to punish anybody ever. What do you think about that? Do you think that's a possibility? 888-589-8840, 888-589-8840. Calvin McCullough, this is AFA Today on AFR Talk. Stay with us.